All right. We are live. And
Yeah.
hopefully we'll have some people showing up here pretty quickly. All right.
Hopefully
And
that's
yes,
good.
and
Hello, hello. We are live.
we are live.
Dave could not make it at the last minute.
Yes, yeah. Unfortunately, Dave had a last minute thing come up, and so he's not going to be able to be here, which is too bad. Uh, when we were exchanging some emails, Dave was one of the things Dave was talking about was ways to build healthy habits or something along that line. I thought that was going to be it would be good to I was going to pick his brain about some things, but next time hopefully.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Hello, Tracy. Todd, hope things are going well for you.
Hey. Hello. Yep. Unfortunately, couldn't make it, but we'll see how that goes. We'll catch up on another one.
Less junk, more health. That's nice. Is that crayfish there? It looks like maybe.
Something like that.
I can't tell for sure. Crayfish or baby lobsters?
Yep.
Maybe.
So you were talking about stress. I'm going to let Chuck run with the stress because we were kind of talking about what to talk about.
We were, as the emails were going about what we were going to talk about this week. And I know that there was a few different things that people were talking about in the exchange, but then I said we could talk about stress. Yeah, it was seafood there in Les's his picture.
Yep.
Yeah, one of the things that that I don't know that that I deal with it all that often, but certainly there are times that that stress is a thing, and stress is actually extremely bad for you, right? Like overall, you don't want to be stressed all the time. It raises cortisol levels. It causes it can cause weight gain, poor sleep. There's a whole list of bad stuff. Inflammation, lots of bad stuff happens from stress. And so, so I wanted to talk some about that this week, mostly because for the last probably 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month, it's just been more stress than normal. And Todd quit Copenhagen 17 days ago, 26 years, finally over the struggle.
Is chewing like as addictive just because of the nicotine, I guess, that's in it then too, then, as regular smoking? I've never really, I know I had friends that dipped all the time. They would always do the thwack on the can and do their little thing.
Well, part of it is, did you ever smoke, Chad?
No, I've never smoked or dipped or was ever
anything. I smoked many years ago, and I quit several times before I quit permanently. And when I say many years ago, probably like 45 years ago. I mean, I smoked from 14 until my mid 20s. So quite a. I mean, I started at a really young age and smoked for a good many years, like 2 packs a day. But half of it is there's real nicotine withdrawals, obviously, and some of the other stuff in cigarettes actually enhance the effect.
Mm-hmm.
But half of it is still just the habitual part of smoking. So, and probably dip is the same way, I would imagine. You smoke when you get up, you smoke after you eat. I mean, you just can't. There's certain times where this whatever action it's tied to putting a cigarette in your mouth, and so that's half the thing. Even once the nicotine withdrawals are really gone. So I haven't smoked. I never did chew really, but interestingly enough, since Todd has brought the subject up, me and my wife a while ago began to chew just like a piece of nicotine gum in the morning and in the evening.
Mhm.
And so then my son-in-law, one of my son-in-laws, was down or up, I guess, actually. We're north of them slightly. And he had some non-tobacco nicotine pouches on, and they were coffee flavored. So I said, oh, well, let me try one of those, right? Okay, well, first of all, they're really good tasting, right? And so then I got me a thing, and I once in a while I would do one, and then I got to where this, like, I have a compulsive kind of personality. I'd just be doing like one right after another, like a box of them has 20, and I just run through the whole box in a day, and which was bad partly because of the money, right? Because just spending the money on it, and I was just way too much at that point. Plus, there's some flavors, there's some flavoring, there's some kind of artificial sweetener. I mean, it's certainly not good for you. No tobacco, so it's just the nicotine. It doesn't have all the same negative impacts as chew or smoking, certainly, but still not ideal. So I haven't had any for I don't know, about 10 days. So anyway, half of it, like what I was saying, it is just the psychological part, the habitual part of
Yeah.
you would normally do this at certain times. And so that's half the thing, right? Like the nicotine withdrawals are gone in a handful of days probably. But just the notion
When
that
I
you
was
want to do it at certain times because you normally do it, right? It just becomes a habit. So,
Yeah. When I was really into my espresso, part of it I think was I'll call it the ritual, the routine and the ritual, because I was so into my
exactly.
espresso. It was the beans, getting them, ordering them, grinding them, tamping, getting everything perfect, getting the puck perfect, because I was really a espresso nerd. Watching the extraction with a bare portafilter and making sure everything's good, and so there was that whole thing
Yeah.
about it.
Yes. And all of that does become habitual, right?
Yeah.
Eventually. And so it's just that thing. 13 days to lose the nicotine cravings is what Todd said. Yeah. So just today I said, oh, I'm going to go to town and buy me some on. I haven't had any for like 10 days. But I don't know that I'm going to, but
No, you're not. There you go.
it's
No,
it's possible, but not
just be
likely.
done with it.
So yeah, no, that really is the thing. I mean, it's just it's one of those things. Anyway, that's probably one of the things that's contributed to my stress, along with a number of others. But the thing about stress, it doesn't matter what brings it about necessarily. It's just the fact that what it does to you. So
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody is in the comments that has any great suggestions on how you deal with stress. So, hey, the Carnivore Crusader, hello. So I know, Chad, that you talked
Certainly.
about anxiety some, right?
Yeah,
So has
I
there
never
did that
I was
lead
gonna
to
say
some of your stress, or were you
I never thought I had anxiety. It was actually a Bible study. We were talking about anxiety, just as it is in the Bible. And I was like, and this was only like a few weeks ago. And I was like, okay, I guess I had it. And I looked up the definition. I tended to always think it was more about going out, meeting people, dealing with people, and I don't know why. I guess naive or whatever, but I just never really thought the anxiety was all the other things that it can be. And I just kind of wrapped it up to me kind of being a private person, or just liking my own space and being comfortable in my own space, and just not liking those. And also some dumb, I hate labels, but like the ADD thing that I get, where I have to be
yeah,
this perfectionist of things. And I think I had that issue and I never it in. But for me, the stress is always I kind of get this like at myself when I can't get things done or stuff comes up. So I'm
yeah,
still critical on myself, extremely critical on what I do. And I think that's again because I raced motocross big time, raced other motorcycle stuff. You know, I was really into the competition stuff, never team sports, always individual things like that, you know, racing and things and bicycle racing. So I was always hypercritical, which is its own stress, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that I do as well. So, in fact, one of the things, so doing a live stream like this, I'll end up talking about stuff I don't talk to anybody about ever, which is kind of odd. But I don't actually talk to my wife necessarily about this, but she'll watch this live stream either now or later, and so she'll be seeing it. But it's one of the things that I do as well, which uh, so again, it doesn't matter so much what the things are, but because we all have different things cause us all to have stress, right? And the
Yeah.
issue with stress is, and I cannot remember the term, but basically the issue with stress is we all have a threshold where we can deal with certain amounts of stress, right? What we don't realize is that once we hit that threshold, the cumulative amount of stress is the issue. Any one small thing usually doesn't bother us, right? The small thing isn't what freaks you out, but that one small thing, when it's on top of the whole stack, right? It's like the straw that broke the camel's back. It was just one straw, but it was the giant pile that came before it. It's the same thing with stress. Um, it's the cumulative effect that finally kind of pushes us over and we begin to feel it, right? We deal with the smaller things, you know, okay. It's just when they compound, and a lot of that's my own doing, which sounds like, Chad, some of yours is like your own
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Self-inflicted.
I'll start multiple projects. I'll have so much stuff going on, and then all of a sudden that stresses me out quite a bit. I don't like. I have a real aversion to failure, and so if I'm not doing something the way that I think that I should be doing it, that really stresses me out quite a bit. But one of the things I don't know why I thought about this, but I was either laying in bed or I just woke up. I can't remember exactly but it was one day last week where I was thinking, I was just thinking about something and about not doing it well enough, right? And it hit me that I am at least half as good as I think I am at most things.
Mhm.
So just half as good. It gives you some perspective, right? A little bit of humility goes a long ways, I think. So if I realize that, I think I should be doing something like up here, right? And the reality is,
Yeah.
I'm really not that good. And if I'd realize I'm about half as good as I think I am, it actually takes a lot of stress off. So
Yeah. I'm gonna where was this diet soda thing? You know, it's interesting. I never drank a lot of diet sodas. We drank like drinks on the boat all the time because they were just there readily available in the cooler, but I mostly drank water. But I did drink a lot of the sparkling mineral water that's flavored. Like I just drank the Costco Kirkland brand
yeah,
that comes in lime, grapefruit, and lemon.
I do that still.
And I quit that, I don't know, a couple years ago, and I just drink the regular plain ones because I like the plain ones. And what's interesting is they've been out of the Kirkland brand for months. And again, maybe it was last month. I'm like, well, I'm just going to pick up the old flavor ones I got. And I'm glad I did because I'm not going to get them again.
Did you not
It
like
was
them?
really strange. If it was just the flavoring in them or something about the flavoring that would trigger that, the ghrelin leptin response, you know what I mean? Being full, the trigger of I need food.
Mm-hmm.
But there was something in it that triggered, and I ended up drinking like 2 a day and sometimes wanting more. But the other thing is it started making me want to eat more when I knew I wasn't hungry. It would like literally trigger my response like, oh, I could kind of eat. And I actually found myself thinking and then going in and like opening the freezer thinking, oh, I wonder if I should take some of those out and thaw them. And it was the interesting thing because I almost feel like doing it again just to test and like literally have 3 a day and really track it. So the diet soda thing getting down to, with the sparkling water, it's interesting because I know it's tough to give those things up. And there has to be something with just because again, I've been off them for so long and then all of a sudden it hit and I never realized how bad it messed up this whole response thing
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
have
Certain
going.
things certainly trigger. And you've not, and congratulations, William. William also off Copenhagen for 3 weeks. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, I used to drink Diet Coke, so like water, only like more than water. We would go out. I would order Diet Coke and coffee at every meal. So, but I haven't had any diet soda for a long time now. I don't know how long exactly, but
I,
years at this
I
point.
think this also jumps to this carnivore strong. I mean, it's about putting a muscle, getting strong, but it's also why I didn't want to do a challenge for 1 month. Because to me, this kind of 1 year commitment of this, and it'll probably keep going, is just for that, Tracy, because it's easy to do something for 1 month, and often 1 month doesn't even start to steer that change. It can take 3 months, 6 months, or a year to get a change. So yeah, hopefully though, I still like the plain Pellegrino or plain thing. I got a little weird fruit fly that's buzzing me.
Yeah, I drink carbonated water sometimes with flavoring, sometimes without, and I do both.
Yeah,
Um, but no sweetener. No. They're
yeah. I
not
never had the
sweet.
sweet one.
They're
It's just the
just plain
essence or
carbonated
whatever they
water
call it.
uh, with a little bit of flavor. Sometimes plain, but it just depends.
So I'll
So
say one thing. Go ahead.
go ahead. Uh,
One thing that's well, hello. Thank you for showing up.
yes,
Otherwise, it wouldn't
we
be so
appreciate it
live.
greatly.
Yep. So two things I'm going to say about the noticing. Um, been doing my hikes probably every other day and trying to do stuff. Last couple of days, when I do a whole bunch of work around the house that's hard work, I'm not doing tons because I'm already working. I feel pretty good. But I did notice getting up, like a couple of those lives I've done, and I want to do more of them when I go up on the mountain and just kind of sit and talk. I notice I can just stand up now from kind of when my knees are higher than my bum, as I'm sitting.
Yeah,
I now can just stand up easily. I don't kind of need that extra hand pushing off. And the other day I was watching a show. I'm kind of really into like some of the old Western stuff. So that new, what is the Bass Reeves or whatever, the guy who was the first colored, the black marshal guy.
Oh
It's a
yeah.
show on him for the AM. And it's cool because he's based on a real character that actually had a really thing. And I love stuff like that. So I've been
Wait,
watching that.
is that a new Western?
Yeah, it's on Paramount Plus. It's the
Is it
same guy.
is it a series?
Yeah, it's going to be a series. And I can't
So-
think of the guy's name now who's done all the ones with Kevin Costner and the ranch thing. And then he's done the 18, whatever, 63 or whatever it was, and the 19. He's done all this. Sure. I can't think of his name now. I hate that when I blank because then I got to think of it. Anyway, it's a great series. So far, it's like 3 episodes in and it's awesome. But when I get up to get out of the couch, I notice I'm getting up way easier now with my leg strength, which I think is interesting because I'm definitely noticing it from these 3-mile hikes I've been doing. And when I don't want to get out and do them, as I've said in a couple of videos, I'm glad I did when I get back.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just been such a great feeling.
So I want to ask you about that, but just totally as an aside here. So
Yeah.
that Marshall was many people believe the inspiration for
Thank
the
you.
original True Grit.
See, I knew she came in for a reason. Taylor Sheridan. That's awesome.
Was the inspiration for the original True Grit with Rooster Cogburn was based on that Marshall originally. I've read some of his, and I've heard lots of people talk about like why don't they actually do a movie about him? So I didn't know they were doing the series, and I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah, there's been a couple movies kind of based on him because I looked up some autobiography stuff before because just I like kind of knowing the history of those movie things and stuff.
Yeah, he was quite a character.
Even his own son murdered someone, and he brought in his own son for it.
Yeah, I didn't remember that part, but no, yes, it was quite a deal. So So my workouts, Chad, have been like, that's another thing just contributing to my stress level, right? So first of all, you get stressed and so you don't feel like doing it. And then when you don't do it, then that contributes to your stress level, right? And
Mhm.
it's like a downward spiral. Okay. So even though my wife has been encouraging me to, like, hey, don't, you need to do this. Yes, Bass Reeves. And
Yeah. Thank
so
you.
and I was going to ask Dave about this because of some of his comments in his email, but I'll ask him next week specifically. So you have been pretty diligent, right? Most of the days, even on days when you've not felt like it, you've
When I'm
kind of
not
gone
feeling good,
out,
I've been pretty good. I'm still kind of taking like, one on, one off, one on, one off,
right?
but I want to get all completely one on, and I'm pretty close to doing that. And the days that I'm off, I'm still doing stuff that's filling in for that.
So
Like trimming all the trees out, back and stuff like that, I
right,
think.
yes. So and I've had some stuff going on, not necessarily physical. It has been deer season here, so um,
Mhm.
I have been doing that some. We had people down on the weekend. My one of my son-in-laws and daughter-in-laws and their new baby. So on Saturday. So what have you been doing to? Have you had anything where you've not wanted to do it, but you've actually done something to kind of keep you motivated? Do you have any? Um, oh, I didn't see that. But anyway, anything to motivate yourself?
I don't know. Carnivore Crusader, did you post something that got? No, I don't think anything got.
Oh, I didn't remove any.
Nope, I didn't remove any here. I don't know.
I just see you said hello, Carnivore
Yeah,
Crusader.
this was the only other one that we see coming up on the back end here for that.
So hopefully,
I doubt you offended anybody. We're carnivores.
I'm sure you didn't offend us because we didn't see your comment.
Yeah. Well, here's the one interesting thing, I guess, for that. Like, I just kind of do it. And I know there's a point when it has to become a habit. And I kind of talked about this really quickly in one. It just, sometimes it's just like, oh, get up and do this stuff. And I know today I've got my boys' trail life I'm going to be doing after this and running around. And I should have just gotten up and done the hike, but I just wanted to sleep in because I also think sleep is a big thing. A few times in
Yes.
comments, people say they sleep less. And everything I've studied on sleep, we still need as much sleep as we can get. I know a lot of people sleep 5 to 6 hours, but I do notice when I'm doing 7 to 8 hours sleeps, I feel better, I perform better. My not my weight loss when I was doing all the weight loss was better when I got more sleep. But also just for me now, my recovery and how I feel and like doing my hikes. Like the other day I had a really short sleep, like 5 hours, and I was just bonky weird the rest of the day. The hike was fine because that energy was there, but then the rest of the day, I had that like I'd get tired, then I'd kind of be awake and I get tired. So I'm still pushing for 7 to 8 hours of sleep. So today I did sleep in an extra hour and a half because I didn't get to bed last night.
Yeah. So something to do with stress
Oh, it
had to do
probably
with the
maybe it
rain.
got, if you were talking about going out shooting or something, probably got automatically removed
You,
knowing that.
we would not have removed you for that. Probably
No.
Carnivore Crusader. At least I know I would not have. I do that as well. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
I'm sure that just probably got removed if you,
yeah, I
mentioned
don't
that.
know. I wouldn't think they'd just be
I'd have the
deleting them,
word
but
in
I
there.
don't know.
I wouldn't. I don't know. I wouldn't, with everything going on and
Who
people
knows?
talking about doing stuff, the SH word, I wouldn't, ending in ING, I wouldn't, I don't even think you can probably say it without them having
No,
some
you can.
automatic thing that
No,
comes in.
I
And,
mean, there's
well, there's still
there's,
channels out there, but
yeah,
I just don't know. You never know with
yeah, I know. So
anything. But anyway, so one other thing that's interesting, if you guys are curious about this, I still get massive histamine I still twitch my nose. I still have really bad allergies, but again, they're immensely better. And I've said this before, my allergies were like anaphylactic shock bad. So my version of bad allergies are bad. So I still have some, but I get really bad histamine response even just from meat still. So I had some lamb a while back, and I had a bunch of goat a while back, and it was okay. And I was like, well, I'm going to try lamb because somebody else mentioned that. And I did well. So I bought a big leg of lamb and then some other lamb chops, and I made them. And I got to say, I really like it. Now, the leg of lamb I'd never really made before since I can ever remember. I might have had it, when my mom made it or something years ago. So I did use garlic and thyme, some rosemary. I kind of followed a thing because people were like, "Oh, watch out, it can get really gamey." And me being into hunting and stuff, I don't mind if some flavor has game because that's why you get that meat, because of the flavor. So I kind of had some response, I think, from that, but it was way less. It was a way better. I had way less response, and I think some of it was just because of the garlic. So I'm gonna look out for more lamb. I'm
Yeah.
really liking it. The problem is with the little like T-bone kind of like lamb chop things you
Yes.
get that are
Yeah.
like little T-bone things, is you're like, what was that guy in the movie trying to eat the little corn cob? Was it
Yeah.
like, I mean, like it's like one of those things you can't get your teeth in there. So I'm using like my thumb to try to get all the meat out and stuff. I'm trying to scrape it out with my nails because they're so short and curved, and I can't get it into my teeth to kind of grind. So that's the only frustrating part of these little T-bones kind of thing.
Yeah. That's and that
You
is what
know,
they are, right? It's
hey, Rick,
the same cut as you would get from ribeye, T-bone. That it's the back strap
yeah, and you can tell it is
from the
too. You can
lamb.
tell there's, but I love those little things. I'm going to start looking for more. And it's quite reasonable. Lamb's quite, some of the stuff is kind of high, but there's a few that you can get, like the leg one. I found the leg one interesting because I don't like the flavor as the fat as much. There's definitely a little bit gamier flavor to the fat. And there's definitely some really like hard, chewy kind of gristle bits in there more so than other meat that I eat. So it's not a big deal. But then the rest of it was quite good. And I did it in sous vide. I did it for 4 hours, 8 hours, and 12 hours. So I had it over 3 days, and I did each one. And I think 12 hours, parts of it almost got too soft, and the 4 hours parts didn't get too done. So I think I'm going to do an 8 hour sous vide at 132 degrees if I do it again, and just realize that, I'd rather have a little bit of chew than it get kind of mushy.
Too soft.
The
Yeah.
other the other sous vide stuff, kind of, some people went all the way up to 24 hours and they were like, yeah, it was mushy. Some people said do 12. You know what I mean? So again, you just got to find what you like. So
Yeah. My wife has does lamb does have a very distinctive flavor, and which
mhm.
I've eaten a fair amount, I guess, over the years. But my wife's not a huge fan. So we had did a couple that we had here that we raised, and we butchered them, and we ate them. But my wife's not. She's not that big a
Yeah.
fan. But we are going to we're either selling a goat or we're butchering the goat. I don't know which, but in the next couple days, one or the other. So we
Oh,
may
okay,
have some more
fine.
goat, which
Well, I think
we
I
do like
mentioned,
goat.
yeah, the goat, I think was more, the goat I had was like naturally raised, and I knew the people that did it, and they actually had a history of goat farming in South Africa. So they're like 6 generations they've been goat farmers, lamb farmers. My wife's correcting me from the other room. So they're used to raising animals for that. But it was quite good, but it was definitely more gamey than the lamb I've been getting from that.
Yeah,
So I think I mentioned before that commercial Costco, the business Costcos, which are different than the regular Costcos, the business centers, have the whole lamb, like where you can get a whole lamb or half lamb in a box. And I just think I still just laugh at half lamb in a box, you know? And so I'm going to try that half lamb in a box and see what's in it. I don't know if they just kind of corded it up and shoved it so it fits in a box. And I'm going to have to do a bunch of cutting or if it's somewhat cut up. So it'll be interesting to see. But the leg was way different than the chops. The chops had a
Yes,
way
yes,
more mellow flavor for sure.
yeah.
And I'm sure it's just like, parts of a cow are different, but not too much different,
No,
you
but
know.
parts of a pig are pretty significantly different, like the pork
Yeah.
chop or the ham. I mean, all of that stuff is the bacon. It's all pretty much. It's pretty radically different, I think.
To
Um,
me, to answer this question, the goat compared to lamb in flavor, I don't have a lot of experience with both. The goat, I had a whole lot of different cuts, like 6 different cuts, and they were all kind of close. Now, the lamb leg was definitely different than the chops with a bit more of that kind of game flavor, but not a bad. But the goat, I would say the most mellow of the goat was more than the leg of lamb. So it was gamier than the leg of lamb, and it was a darker kind of not as bright red meat for at least the ones I had. So I don't know.
yeah. So I
That's
wonder what
only
kind
my
of goat.
experience.
I wonder what kind of. So I found the goat that we've had was I've eaten all kinds of different meat, and especially what was ground. Um, I thought was the closest to beef of any meat that I've ever eaten. So lamb has a really distinctive flavor. If you just fried up, 8 different meats and hamburger patties on the grill, I mean, I could pick lamb out with no issues whatsoever,
Mhm.
and probably most other things. Like I really like deer, but I can still pick that out, and if it's processed
Yeah.
really well, it does not have the gamey flavor, but it's still a bit of a distinctive flavor. Uh, I thought the our goat was actually really was about the closest to beef to anything I've ever had, whether it was emu or bison or whatever. And I've eaten a bunch of different stuff. And so we liked it, and my wife liked it a lot because it didn't have a real distinct, it doesn't taste exactly like beef, um, but most meat you can still taste there is a flavor to that, to whatever,
Yeah.
right? I mean, uh, now I've eaten deer, but I've eaten beef also that was not aged, that was not really probably done very well, that has what people call that gamey flavor. So I've eaten beef that tasted like that too, because it just was not. It really was not done quite the way it should have been. Um,
Yeah.
but our goat did not have that gamey kind of flavor. It was pretty mild. And
Well,
lamb,
it's
I
probably
don't
what
think
they were
lamb has a
raised on.
gamey flavor. I just think it has a real unique flavor. Like,
Yeah, I guess you could say that too. I wouldn't say maybe gamey, but maybe you could taste more of a something.
yeah,
And like I said, it was more like the lamb I had from the leg to the chops was quite a bit different.
yeah,
Where the goat, all of it was quite even
mhm,
in the flavor. It really reminds me of the difference of eating white meat of a chicken to the dark meat of the chicken. And I prefer dark meat of chicken. I don't eat chicken anymore. But when I do, I like the dark meat. And to me, it was like if you took that as a flavor profile of an animal, that's what the goat was to me, is like that dark meat. It was like a richer,
yeah.
fuller flavor kind of
And
thing.
and the goat would be more like a deer in the sense that it doesn't matter that much what part of the deer you're eating. It really is still that. And
Yeah.
Susie loves venison. Yeah, and we like it as well. So I
Sausage
have
is always deer sausage is
I have
always
not
really
shot one this year yet, but I still have a while. So
well,
so
I noticed there's a company now that's actually pushing out the Maui Axis deer, like a company. I've seen a few like YouTube people kind of talk about it, for these sticks and stuff they're doing. But the deer on Lanai, the Axis deer there taste nothing like mainland deer. They are so good. And like I said, they consider it the best deer in the world actually coming off the Hawaiian Islands. So I do remember that because it was nothing like
I remember that
they didn't
product. I've
care.
not tried it. I don't
Yeah.
remember the name,
It's
but I
funny when
remember
I
hearing
see
about it.
it because, it's so prolific out there that it's almost like a pest.
Yeah, it's an invasive species. They're going to try to eliminate it completely, I believe.
Community but like many people's cave. Yeah.
Thank you, Arlene. Her next
Yep.
comment, she appreciates Thank
Well,
you
the
very much.
community is
I
good.
appreciate that.
All the community here is really good.
So one of the things that I'm doing to reduce stress level is just to reduce the number of things that I'm involved in that are not that are just contribute, right? So we've actually gotten rid of most of our goats. We're going to get rid of the last three this Wednesday, and we will buy some goats or lambs or kids, I should say, in the spring, and just run them through the spring, summer, and fall, and not carry any over the winter. So that's going to reduce my stress level a little.
Yeah.
Wintertime is just always a hassle. Usually we're having kids in February and March. It's the coldest time of the year for us here. You're going out, breaking water, you're buying hay. We've had bad drought here this year. And so hay's going to be, I don't know how much. It's going to be crazy. So one of the things that we're doing, I'm trying to cut back on hobbies. Man needs a hobby,
Yeah.
and I get a new one every month. It's kind of that's a bad habit as well, Chad. Don't get a new
Yeah.
hobby every month.
I'm just trying to get rid of just, clutter, because even though I'm kind of that minimalist kind of thing, we still have too much stuff, and I want to kind of get back to simpler. What's interesting about the hiking is I'm really liking it quite a bit. I've always liked it, but I'm really liking it even more so now, which is an interesting getting up in the morning and doing it. So I'm kind of also having a newfound appreciation for the simplicity of it. Just getting up and walking. Like, I love my mountain biking and I love my road bike, but I don't like riding road bikes around here so much. But I love biking. But there is something nice about that simplicity of just being on your feet
Yeah.
and going where there's not a lot of extra stuff. There's obviously some good shoes, whatever else, but you don't have to have the bike and get to the trails and find the better trails. You can kind of go anywhere you want on hiking. And I'm kind of enjoying that, which is an
Right.
interesting side for me.
So Lisa, we've never tried that, but what we normally do, we process our own deer. So with rare exception, we've taken a couple deer in many years. So we do them ourselves. Normally, we will, we skin that deer immediately. We quarter it and we put it in plastic bags, just quartered. And we put it in, we have two refrigerators. We put it in the refrigerator and it stays in there for at least 5 to 7, sometimes 8 or 9 days. And then we process it. And because good beef is aged, and it really does do something pretty significant to the deer if you get it clean skinned and cooled immediately, and then you let it just age in the refrigerator for again probably at least 5 days, 7, 10 days,
You ever,
whatever, and then you
you ever,
get it out and you process it, and it's really good like that.
did you ever just let it hang for like 3 to 5 days out in the open? Have you
uh,
seen people that do that?
yeah, no, the problem with that is um is temperature, right? Well, there's a few things. First of all, if you skin an animal immediately after it's been dispatched, um, it's easy. If you do it after, it's actually hung, it's much more difficult. So I know people that actually made like a cooler kind of thing with like they insulated the shed and put like a big air conditioner in it. And yeah, if you can just hang it in there the way they would beef at 40 degrees you know, for a week, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
But the other thing is now I don't hear, but in Virginia, um, when I bow hunted a lot, you'd be bow hunting at 70 degrees outside. You can't just let it hang. I mean, I guess you could, but even here, it was this weekend. It was cool at night, but during the day, it's getting to be in the 60s. It was probably about 68 degrees today, and it's supposed to be 70 still one day this week. So I
Yeah.
guess if you're in cold enough climate, you can do that, but you don't have any control. So I never liked the option. You just leave it hang. If it gets super cold, it freezes and then thaws, and then if it gets too hot. But in the refrigerator, it's just hanging out at
I know a lot of
40
people used
degrees.
to leave it like in the Northwest, they just hang it. Even in the islands, though, they would hang it for a
Yeah,
while after they
yeah,
would get it. But they would get it right away, like usually within like they're only like the island in Lebanon is so small. Once you shoot it, you just basically put it on your back because they're only like 80 pounds,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
you know hump it back to your house, and then immediately it's up and done, and whatever else, and kind of clean, clean it up,
One
and
to 2 hours a day to enjoy my life. Yeah, hang deer. Yeah,
yeah, I know
overnight
a
in
lot of people
Colorado.
do that. I knew a
Yeah,
lot of people that did it for days, like, they'd do it for
yeah,
3 or 4 days till it was, like, literally quite whatever on the outside,
yes.
like, dried out, and I'm sure everybody has their things, but
Their own
also
way. That's exactly
yeah,
right.
and, it's kinda like cooked meat. I don't worry too much about it. If it's out for the day on the counter, it doesn't bug me.
Yeah, I don't either, really.
It doesn't really.
Some people get kind of freaked out about that, but we
Yeah, I had
don't.
some that was out, though I did leave some out the other day. It was like, I don't know how long, maybe 30 plus hours,
A while.
and I still had it, and it did have a little different change of flavor, but not a lot, but I could tell there was a little something different to it when I grilled it, but it was, I didn't get sick or anything. It
Yeah.
was still fine. So,
Yes, the thing with stress, Arlene, for me at least, it is just a cumulative thing that it, it just continues to build. First of all, I mean, unlike before, this is pretty interesting actually. It used to be, Chad, when I'd get stressed, I would eat, right? How
mhm,
people talk about, they have comfort foods, and you get
yeah,
stressed and you go, okay, that's what I'd be doing. Now, I'm the opposite. When I get stressed, I don't eat. And so I'll be stressed and I just won't eat all day, which is, again, now that I've got to where I am weight wise, it's not necessarily ideal that I'd be losing a lot more. Uh, it's just really weird what it does. I don't sleep well when I'm stressed. And because you don't sleep well, then you don't get enough sleep. Well, that contributes to the stress because then, I'm operating on sleep deprivation. And and then all of that stuff just compounds. And what do you do to kind of get out of that? One of the things that I do, which and the problem is, I know some of the things that I do that actually helps me, and when I do them, I know that I always feel better, and when I don't do them, but it's just that sometimes I don't. So if I actually take a little bit of time in the morning, very first thing, and I have a routine, right, like everybody else. And so if I get up, I make my coffee, but I don't start any of the rest of my day. So I'll get up with a little bit of extra time before work, and I will actually take some time to read, um, and to pray. I actually feel much better throughout the day, right? And if I don't, then and the silly part is, or silly, foolish, whatever, is I know that, right? And so if I don't do it, because there's days I get up and I say, "Oh yeah, I don't feel like doing it right now," and then like at noon, I already realize, yeah, okay, that was a bad idea, right? I don't take
yeah.
any time at all just to kind of unwind and to kind of get my mind straight for the day. And you just rush right in because there's so much stuff that's going on. You think, okay, I want to do this. I want to do this. I've got this to do, and you just immediately start without taking any time whatsoever to kind of get perspective on life. Then you know, it, and then it just snowballs from there. And then you
Yeah,
end
I've
up,
noticed.
2 weeks later, it's like, man, I just been stressed for 2 weeks. And I had other
Yeah,
stuff going on. We had a new store opening. That always kind of bothers me a little bit because it's a big deal. I've got to be gone for several days. I mean, not at night, but I still have to be down there. And so it's just all of those kind of things kind of compound. And, and every time you don't get something done you think should be done, that just adds more, if you allow it to. I haven't been working out like I should be. That just adds to it, So now I have a live stream that we're doing workouts and getting in shape, but you're the only one that's doing it. Actually, I shouldn't say that. Maybe Dave's been pretty consistent.
I think I'm the
I've not
most
been
active so
consistent.
far, though.
And so now, all of that stuff adds up. And the reality is it goes back to what you said earlier, and that is sometimes we hold ourselves to a standard that's not realistic. We don't extend a lot of grace to ourselves sometimes. At least some people don't, right? And in certain areas we do, but in certain areas we're extremely critical of ourselves. And I certainly get like that at times. Especially if I do something I just know I should not have done. It's like, what are you thinking? I mean, and then you beat yourself up and you just add to the stress. And that's what happens.
Yeah. Well, I noticed the mornings I get up, do my hikes. Like I said, been doing every other day, and I wanted to start doing every day, no matter what. Anyway, it's. I feel better when I come back. I also feel like I get more done for the rest of the day because it's got me going. And kind of what you were saying to do. Blah, 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 blah. I try to do the things I like 1 to 2 hours a day, and I think that's the other thing. I need to start compartmentalizing. I don't know how to compartmentalizing.
Compartmentalizing.
The little things and setting aside and saying, okay, I should put an hour or two into this and an hour or two. Because I tend to have this bad habit of I do one thing until like it can consume the whole next 2 days. And that's part of that ADD thing where I just can't let go of things. I'm getting way better about it. And Carnivore has helped immensely, but I cannot let go of something once I start until I'm finished with that project. And I just, it drives me nuts when it's not. And that's one of those issues. And I think that's where the stress thing to me, if I don't finish it, it really bugs me. And that's where stress. So I almost have to do it. Otherwise it does bring it, what I mean? It's almost this catch-22.
Yeah.
Where I can't let go of it until it's done.
I'll tell you, I think that it's really counterintuitive though, that the issue because you talked about being more productive, it would seem counterintuitive that you would take an hour or two, or sometime, even if it's not an hour or two, if it's 30 minutes, you take 30 minutes to kind of really just to kind of get your mind right.
Yeah.
And then you make sure, and you take your 7 or 8 hours of sleep at night, right? I think that you are more productive. And it seems counterintuitive that you'd take time out of your day that would make you more productive, right? You basically take time out to either sit and read or to pray or whatever you happen to do. And then you make sure that you go to bed at a decent hour, that you actually get more done and feel better doing it, even though you've spent time not doing what you thought you had to accomplish, right? It seems counterintuitive, but I think that is what happens, right? You get more done and you feel better when you do take some time to kind of refocus on what really matters. I mean, that's the other thing. I don't know about you, Chad, but for me, I get stressed about stuff that, 3 days later, I realized it was just, that was stupid, right? Like that stuff didn't even matter, right? You get stressed about stuff.
Everything is that way though. When you really look back at time, everything's that way. And that's why I've done a couple videos on this cheating on this thing, or because I hate that term, or having us treat or whatever else. In the long run of things, it doesn't matter. Even if you mess up on this diet, it just doesn't.
I love that comment. When I did my nutrition and coaching certification, one of the things in there that they had an article specifically about exercise. It's like, well, what do you do if you have a client that just they just don't want to exercise? And their recommendation was just tell them not to. Don't do it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's exactly right. When you think I should or I must or I have to do this, it actually it really does affect me in a negative way. So I said earlier, I have an aversion to failure. I also have an aversion to feeling trapped or constrained, right? So it's why I have a rule. My holiday, there is no rules rule, right, Chad? Where
Yeah.
I'm pretty strict on what I eat all the time. On holidays, there are no rules. I don't always eat bad stuff. I've only eaten one what I would call bad thing all year. We're into November, but I have that rule specifically because of what you just said about could or should. On a holiday, I can eat whatever I want. I often don't, but I can. Right. So I don't when it's hard and fixed, it does actually make me want to rebel against it. So if I say, "Oh man,
Yeah.
I've got to do this," or I should do this, and yeah, I do. I don't do well. I don't do
Well, you
well
know,
under those conditions. But if I could do it. It's totally different. It's like, oh yes, I get a choice. That makes all the difference in the world. I don't like to be just told, even by myself, hard fast. You got to do
yeah.
it. I don't like it, right?
Well, the
Because
sarcastic
it makes me
side of
rebel.
me, to what you said, when if you had like a person in that training thing that didn't want to exercise, my sarcastic side would be like, well, find a person that's going to train you that won't let you do it because I'm not going to let you get away with not exercising.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
they just, but
I
I
kind
think,
of have that. It's
yeah,
it's
yes,
it's like when I used to talk to financial planners on the boat when I was taking them diving. I'd always wonder what people do, for a living, and we'd always talk. And I'm like, so what do you do when you get a guy that like just won't listen to you? And he's like, I tell him to get a new financial planner because if they won't listen to me, oh, my brother has this deal and it's a for sure thing. He's like, find a new person because no. I think there has to be some point though too on some things where you just make it happen. And maybe that's a generational thing where you and I are of that age, where we were kind of brought up and taught, no, you just make it happen. You just, buck up and get
yeah,
tough and make
yeah,
it happen
and
and get it
certainly,
done.
certainly in some areas, it's absolutely like that.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that the thing with that, with the exercise part, was that if you're going to talk about overall health, there's like a host of things, right, that you can do. And if you're going to beat yourself up, or you just absolutely loathe this like the plague, and that's going to keep you from doing anything, don't do then forget about that one thing, right? And work on your
Yeah.
diet, stop eating crap, do low carb, real food, keto or carnivore, work on getting sleep, work on reducing stress. And then, the hope always is that you move into a place where those things become where you can at least tolerate it, right? Like, you may never love it. Somebody said to me the other day, I think it was my son-in-law who's a captain in the army. I was sending him texts about exercise. He said, "No, no, it takes a little while for you to start to love it." And I said, "If I make 120, Brett, right, I'm not going to love it, right? So I'm never going to
Yeah.
love it because I may hopefully not loathe it, but
But if
I'm
it's
never
hiking or something, you
never
might
gonna,
end up loving it
never gonna
if
love it."
it's not the same kind of exercise as you view it as something
Yes, yes,
almost
yes.
going back to that have to, because I love the hiking and if I get a ruck on, which I want to pick up at some point, that's going to make it tougher. I don't plan on doing a lot more miles, but you might like that side of it. You probably, you know what I mean?
Yes.
There's going to be something
Yeah,
you might find that,
there will be things that you actually do enjoy that are at least physical, right? I
yeah.
mean, maybe not the actual like real training kind of stuff, but I like it more than I used to. It's just that I don't like it nearly enough, obviously, because I'm not doing it all the time. So I'm
Well,
not I'm not liking it as much as meat, right?
no, for
Because I eat
me,
meat all the time.
I'm excited to see what I can do for my own thing. And it's not a vanity thing. It's not to go, oh, look at me showing off. It's just for me to do, to be a better father for my kids. You know, I had kids later. I'm 60. My kids are 14 and 19. To be a good dad that can do all these hiking and do all these camping and not be the sweaty dad that can't keep up,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, that can't do this stuff. And it's also just, you know, God gave us this body, this temple. I should take care of it, both physically, spiritually, mentally, all that stuff. You know, I try to
Yeah.
make sure I keep that clean on the spiritual side, or clean, but you know what I mean? Not clean, but like focused, I guess. You know what I'm trying to say? Like
Yeah.
that is an important step in my life, obviously, both of us. I know we're both religious. Like men's Bible study on Friday starts at 6, you know, 6:30 for me, 6:45, but I'm up there at 6:30. So I don't do the hikes, but I should do them after. And I just got to again then get home and then go do the hikes after. But I'm not doing, that's kind of my day off
Right.
for sure. So it's also those things where that same focus of why I'm doing this isn't for an outwardly thing, it's just for me. So I think that drive I have now is, again, and that's one of the things, like I've said this about me in the past. When I was in high school and was really into the whole gaming thing back in 1980 and video arcades were big, my little brain kind of did the math with these quarters and how much people were putting in. And I saved up and I bought a machine. It was a Defender, like, you know,
Yep.
game. Some of you old people remember Defender. And then that game made enough. And I put it in a mom and pop store to buy 2 games. Those 2 made for 4, those 4 for made for 8. And by my senior year, I had 2 arcades and I was doing pretty well. So I take that passion and do it. I got into skateboarding pretty big. So I opened a skateboard shop and did well. And of course, my bicycle riding, because I made enough with a skateboard shop, then I opened a bicycle shop. And of course, then like snowboarding picked up in the late 80s, you know, or the mid 80s when I got into it. And I ended up doing like bicycle, skateboard, and snowboard shop. And I loved the snowboarding so much, I ended up becoming a snowboard instructor for 8 years. You know, so there was this trend, and the same thing with my scuba. Once I had a really bad accident and I had to quit snowboarding. I knocked myself out and I lost my memory for 3 months, which was pretty horrific. And it's a weird thing to lose your memory. I should do a video on that because it's just, it is the strangest thing. It is just so strange because you can be driving and you don't forget how to drive, but you forget who you are and where you are and what's going on. Like imagine being in a deep sleep and all of a sudden just boom, you wake up on some highway that you don't recognize and you're driving a car. It's like that. It's just the strangest thing. And I knew enough that I kept a note, and I don't know how to explain this. I knew enough that like, okay, oh, I have a note in my pocket, and I would pull out this note and it'd be like, your name is Chad. This is where you live. This is what happened. This is why you're, you know,
What? Wait, they let you drive?
oh yeah, yeah. Because I was totally functional, but I just couldn't. I had this like a pinched nerve thing, so I couldn't remember things that were there, but I could remember how to drive. I could remember, and maybe too, they wouldn't do it today. I don't know, but I could remember, but I just wouldn't know. Like sometimes I'd be working in the shop, and all of a sudden I'd just be like, I got no clue who I am or where I am or what I'm doing, and it was the strangest.
Wow.
But I wouldn't forget, like, oh, this is pegboard. These are bicycle gloves. This is a bicycle. I know how to adjust this. It was just this weird, I don't know how to describe it, but it was this radical thing. So when I got out of that and got into the like scuba diving that I ended up doing for 15 years, you know, so I ended up, okay, I'm going to follow my passion and do the diving and do that for the next 15 years. And again, because I've been into photography, that's why I did that for the last 20 years. So some of my passion now is turning into this health, and I'm trying to see how can I turn this into something I do. So at least I've always taken these passions I've had and turned them into a career path in a work. And I don't know where this is going to take me. Like I've talked about getting into maybe Costco or something and trying to get in the meat department and become a meat cutter or something. You know, just a crazy idea.
Become a butcher.
Yeah,
Hello,
but you know,
Alexis.
something like that, and doing the health thing and trying to help people. And I've always done it because I love teaching people snowboarding and I love teaching scuba. I mean, I did those 23 years of my life between the two. And even when I had the bike shop, we used to do a lot of training and a lot of stuff like that with people. So I think even maybe, you know, we talked about the coaching thing a little bit before. I mean, maybe I could do that and try to help. So I've always I think, been lucky that I've made what I've done my passion, so I'm never, like, dreading what I
Right.
do.
Yeah.
And I think this is why I love doing this, and I never dread what I do. It's just, coming up with the time with the day and the kids being, teens
Yeah.
and stuff. And I think that's helped me with my stress. And I say that to come back around the stress. So like I used to sometimes hate the days on the boat because you got to clean the boat and you got to prep it and you get dumb people on the boat, and it's just like anything you come across in life. But overall, it's a pretty stress-free life. And the same thing with teaching boarding, it's a pretty stress-free life. And I think if I can keep doing something that I'm passionate and really into, I think that also keeps the stress down,
Yeah.
with your whole life outlook and making everything that
Well, for
one flow.
sure, if you have to if you have a job that you hate, which fortunately I do not, then that's pretty miserable. I have at times, and well, not that often actually. Most of my jobs have been pretty good, but there have been times where I've had a job I didn't like at all. It's like
Yeah.
misery, and that certainly contributes to the stress. But you know what? The other thing is, and I mentioned this earlier, Chad. It is a matter of perspective. The worst in my worst that I've ever had life in the last, let's just say, 30 years, 30 plus years. I've been married 31 years now. There literally are billions of people in my worst job, right? Or my worst kind of spot in my life that would trade places with me. Literally billions, right? And
Mhm.
and so it is a matter of perspective in sometimes about understanding that I, I when I think it's bad, it's like, man, it's really not bad, right? The life that I've been able to have, where we've always been, even in difficult times, is not that difficult. Not in reality, right? Not the way that some people still have it today. Not the way that people had it in the past. It's pretty awesome, but you kind of lose that perspective sometimes, and you just allow yourself to be stressed out about things that really ultimately don't matter very much, right?
I think also how people perceive what is successful, like, I'm probably like a lot of you people, not rich by any means. I'm on
Yeah,
a tight budget, and that's why I eat a lot of chuck steak. If I could have it my way, I'd eat ribeye every day. But even when I worked on the boats, we would get all kinds of people on the boats, and they'd be like, "Oh, I'd love to do this." And I go, "You can. You just got to walk away." I was really successful at the bicycle skateboard shop. We were actually really big, and I was making really good money. So that wasn't a problem. You can make money if you want to do something, and I did enjoy it. But once it became unenjoyable because it
yeah,
was a business and it just got so big that I was working literally 100 hours a week trying to run it, that it just I was getting ulcers in my 20 years old because I was worried so much about the business and managing all this stuff. So with the scuba thing, I used to joke, it's like, because I'd throw my backpack up in the one corner window where you would go out to the front deck and stuff. And I'd be like, look, I got a corner office, and look at my view every day. It's this view. And we're just looking out over the water going to Molokini on Maui. And I go, you can have this if you want, but you have to give up a
right.
lot.
Yeah,
Like, if you see where I live, it's not a very nice fancy place, but I'm never there because I'm out here doing this. And when we go home, it's to change, and then we go out hunting or fishing or come back. And like, even when I lived in the Caribbean, I just packed up 3 bags and just like, okay, I'm heading down there, and set up a job and landed. I lived in a one bedroom kind of shanty thing that had like a shared bathroom for a year. And I don't think a lot of people would do that. And I loved it because it really gave me this in touch feeling of what most people live like where I was on the island I was. And I think that's also led me to just take on whatever is in that role of the time. And, talking about stress, like, oh man, what am I going to do? Because I
yeah,
had no refrigeration, I had no anything like that.
Yeah.
I literally used a washboard, the old-fashioned washboard to wash my clothes. But
That's
I loved it
crazy.
because it was also an experience, and I knew it wasn't forever,
Right.
just for a year, but it was a great learning experience. So I think too, it's how people perceive when they get stressed. Like you were saying, after 3 days later, you find it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. By the way, throw the yes, a Jordan Peterson like chat. Okay, that I am going to print and post. No one I'm sure will ever again refer to me or Chad as being Jordan Peterson like, but thank you very much. I'm a huge fan. So
Yeah, no, I like him. I do like life stuff though, because to me that's like I've said this before. A lot of this whole carnivore journey is mental, and I think people don't give the mental side of this enough. I can
yes,
say eating meat's easy, and some people say, "Oh no, it's tough because I don't like that." I go, you know what I mean? Don't get into I don't know if semantics is the right word, but the mental of why and how we do things and how our outlook is on things kind of stuff is huge and how it plays in. And don't get me wrong, when I'm like going to be taking my kid to trail life tonight, I got to drive 30 minutes across town through Phoenix traffic. I'm not going to like it. I I do not like the traffic. I do not like how some of the people drive, but it's just part of the day and you just kind of get through it.
yeah,
So I don't ever want to also project that like, oh, I'm this perfect impervious thing, but at the same time, it's you get there, you come back home and you let those things go, but they still upset me. Don't you know what I'm saying? There's that difference of
yeah,
how you I don't know if it's compartmentalize or handle those things. And that's what I would like to get better at. Like my wife can do driving around here and it just doesn't bug her. But me, it just the bad drivers just drive me
yeah. Me as
crazy.
well. I'm impatient.
It's like the idea of a turn signal is you put a turn signal on, check if it's clear and go. Not like you turn and halfway through the thing you put on a signal and expect the person to slam on your brakes because you almost hit them.
No, they've put in roundabouts here by us, and no one knows what a roundabout is, and no
Yeah,
one knows what a yield sign is. Good evening, Arlene. Thanks for stopping by.
yeah. Thank you.
No,
Enjoy.
by the way, Jordan Peterson tells a story which is absolutely true. He talks about the fact that gratitude will go a long ways, and he talks specifically about a group of people that their life consists of getting up at night, going up the side of a volcano, going down inside it, getting giant pieces of sulfur, bringing them down, selling them to buy food, and then doing it again. And he
Yeah,
said, that's someone's life, but it's not your life, right? A little bit of gratitude goes a long ways. And that's the truth, right? That is someone's life, but it's not my life, thank goodness. And I should be a lot more thankful and appreciative of the incredible blessings I have, as opposed to getting stressed out or discontented with stuff.
one of the big YouTubers I was watching, and I don't know who it was. I can't remember. I watched some of the interview people and stuff that do things, and one of them had a good kind of analogy. Like they said, a little kid in some poor country could be totally grateful for a bowl of rice. He would be so happy. It would just make his day to have a bowl of rice. And yet you get these people in some fancy New York restaurant or some Michelin, whatever the star rating is, the top star rating, and that something's not quite perfect. And that person's totally upset and totally enraged and not happy about that situation at all over probably a best meal that almost none of us will ever even experience.
Yeah,
So when you look at, and I think that's a great way too, to look at, what should stress
yeah.
you and what
And what shouldn't?
shouldn't
Yeah, and we do
stress
that.
you.
I mean, even at you know, everybody does it at certain levels,
Yeah.
because we're not always, because we just allow ourselves. We look often at the difficulties and the downsides as opposed to you know the
Yeah.
the good fortune and stuff that we have. So
I'm
be
gonna
right
include
on.
this in another video one time, and it's really funny because when I lived in the Caribbean, I mean, you'll never be a local, but you'll eventually be like, oh, you work for, I work for this guy Jernigan, so it's like, oh yeah, man, you work for Jernigan, man, it's all right, man, and then they kind of accept you. But the one thing that they always did, and it took me a while to figure it out, is they would always say this like, all right, like this, they're saying all right, but they do it with that drawl, that, oh, all right, as you walk by him. And if thing and I never quite understood this, all right. I'm like, why do you guys just say all right? And they would always say, well, we assume you're going to ask us how we are. That's just a given that you're going to care how we're doing that day. So they skip that part and just say all right. And I actually pick that up and still use it sometimes, the all right. And I love that attitude of like, they just assume that you do care and you're going to ask. And if they don't, they just lay into it. They hold nothing back, Yeah, man, look at this thing I got, man. No, poke it, man. Feel that thing. Feel that bump. It's hard, and they would just go off on this like weird stuff that's happening to their body or something. And I like that kind of also, like, obviously those people were pretty low stress people, most of the people I knew there, like you were saying, that guy who goes up in the sulfur and gets the
Yeah.
sulfur. There was one guy there who just basically was like, Caribbean island that's already insanely poor. And he would just kind of sweep the streets and, people would kind of pitch together and help keep him alive and feed him and pay. And, he had nothing kind of stuff. I mean, that's a pretty, and he was a happy guy. He was always, hey, man, all right, man. Like when you go by to all the dive guys and all this stuff, and he was really friendly with everybody. And he never seemed to be like, oh, this is just horrible kind of thing.
Well, that's it. You can have that attitude no matter where you are in life, right? You can have that attitude when you're destitute, and you can have it when you're wealthy, but you can have the opposite attitude where the universe is conspired against me, and whether you're well off or whether you're not, and unfortunately, a lot of people do have that attitude, and and even everybody probably swings into it on occasion. It's just you don't want to live there, right? It's not good for you.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I think also it's when you don't have a lot, I don't think you expect a lot. And I do think there's something to that. When you have a lot, you expect a lot. When you have a bigger, fancier house and all this stuff, you expect things to a higher degree. If you're just kind of getting by, you're okay with the rental. It might not have the perfect cupboards, something like that. Because I've been there, done that. Just like the place where I lived when I lived overseas, it was like whatever. And places like Micronesia, when I was down there, they were living in old World War II, like concrete, like some of the bunkers and stuff, with like no doors, no walls, no nothing. They were just living in these old World War II concrete bunkers, and people would just, that was their house. They managed to find a place and carve it out kind of. And, someone might have put up some tin walls or something, but that was it. They had even less than they did in the Caribbean. And they seemed to be good-spirited people. They didn't really seem to be too upset about it.
Well, that was probably an upgrade from nothing.
Yeah. So I think too, there is that thing of what your expectations are with how much you have, what you expect, everything else, and that whole stress thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just an interesting, I think living abroad though is pretty good too. I do think everybody should go live in not a rough, but a country that's poor or something like that, just so you can get an appreciation for how good the people are in general there.
I don't want to do it myself.
Yeah, I like it though. It's a fun experience because you do get to see, the other side. I think you realize how good we have it here.
Well, yes, that part is true. And that part is important to have perspective. So,
yeah. So anyway, we might be wrapping this up. I don't know if anybody had any questions, comments. Hopefully some people are working out. I'm hoping we're getting a few people going, yeah, okay, I'm going to just start walking around the block now. That's my goal, is to try to drag some people in with us and start trying to say, yeah, I'll start walking around the
I think
block, even
technically
twice
it
a
would
week,
be drag some people in with you.
including Chuck. We got to get
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Chuck to go along with it.
Technically, it's drag some people in with you, unless Dave has been also working out. I wasn't here last week, unfortunately, so I don't know. Mexico part of Rocky Point.
Oh wow, yeah. I've not been. Everybody goes to the Rocky Point area.
Wait, where is that?
So,
Is that in
yeah,
Mexico?
in Mexico. It's in Mexico. It's kind of down through Phoenix. Everybody goes. It's like fairly close to at Phoenix when you look down, kind of south a bit.
So south
So
of
it's
Nogales. That's the only place I've ever been in Mexico.
it's all the way down. Yeah, it'd be east of. I think it would be east. I'm trying to think on the map, but it's just kind of down on the lower part there on the water. But I know a lot of people. I know my daughter went down there to build homes on a mission trip too, kind of down in that area. So she's done that, where she's gone down and, helped build the homes for local that our church does, which I think was a good
Yeah.
experience for her. My son will have a chance to do. Well, that's awesome then, that so you kind of know how I don't like driving around,
So
especially coming from the islands and
so
stuff.
you
It's
live
like,
okay? You actually live there now full time.
sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
if you
really
like it,
cool.
it's awesome.
Well, it's when I was down where I was working the Caribbean, I would get over. We would fly into mainland Honduras, and I would spend some time there and coming up through. And I spent a month in Guatemala, just backpacking Guatemala, and I actually went by public bus everywhere because, again, I wanted to have that experience. So I went everywhere by public bus, which sometimes was a little sketchy in some of the big things. In some of the big towns, you can get some pretty scary, sketchy stuff. But
Yeah.
it was a fun experience. But some of that area is so pretty. Some of the stuff that's around.
Directly below Phoenix. So earlier, I
Mm.
said I don't like to be constrained, right? I also don't like public transportation.
I hate, yeah, public transportation is,
That's
yeah,
why
that's really
I
cool.
have a car and a truck. Like, actually, I've heard people say that like it is also different in this country that people drive everywhere. That like public I don't even like to ride somewhere with someone else. I want to
Yeah.
have I want to be able to actually come and go at just whenever I want. I'm not saying that's necessarily good. I'm just saying that's the way it is. So I think that is. I don't like to be constrained. It's what happens. Speed limit is 15. Oh my
Curious,
goodness.
how is it like for meat and finding the meat and the pricing compared with up here? And I would be really curious to hear what some of the differences are. If you can hit that in the chat thing really quick. I'm curious about that. I got to just go down there and do like what everybody goes down and do. The problem with, for me, even vacation right now, is just everything is so tight, and with the kids and my daughter in college, and running her over to college and stuff like that, and my boy being in activities and stuff, and we homeschool. It's just, I don't have time to even get out right now. It'll change though. But I do have that ability because we're with our kids all the time. So
Yeah.
that's a big upside, is that I'm always with them.
I've been
I
doing
wondered about
some resistance,
resistance bands.
but not bands. I've
Yeah.
just been resisting the bands. That's a problem.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any questions? And maybe what Miss Young? I don't know how to say your first name. I don't want to butcher it.
Lucia.
Is it Lucia?
I
Hopefully it
would
is.
think it might be. They don't want to meat and no red coloring.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, I don't know. I know the stuff in Honduras was pretty poor quality, but that's when I would get the meat there. In the islands, I mostly ate fish. And I'd eat some other stuff, but not a lot of other. But I wasn't carnivore then either, so it didn't really matter.
245. Is that a
for wood like
pound?
food.
Is that a pound?
I would
245 a
assume
pound?
that's in there, so I don't know what the value would work out to.
Well, maybe that's US equivalent.
I'm trying to think if that would be about $13 a pound then or something. The pesos. Kind of like in
245
Guatemala, I
pesos?
used quetzales, and Lempira in Honduras was limps.
14
Yeah, so
bucks.
14,
Okay.
14 bucks for half kilo. So it's kind of similar to here then. Probably too, because it's not way down in there. It's a bit more close, but well, yeah. So I think we're going to wrap it up. If there's no last,
if there's any questions, now's the moment. Type now or forever hold your peace.
And Dave will be back.
Dave will be back next 2 weeks. Yes, in 2 weeks. We'll be back in 2 weeks, and Dave will be with us in 2 weeks. And
both of them are going to be doing more working out.
And now me and Dave are both going to be doing more work. Actually, I don't know if Dave's been doing, so I don't want to throw Dave under the bus.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have much less stress after my therapy session, and I'll be doing some more workout.
Yep.
Or at least I could be doing more workout. I get the choice.
Well, I'll put up a video because I'm going to try to go down and get some of that lamb. I'm going to try to put up a video of this business center, Costco, where they literally have whole lambs hanging in the cooler door, and there's literally like a whole lamb.
Yeah.
Hanging there, and like when you go to the meat section, there's none of the small chucks. It's all the big vac pack, the big restaurant size vacuum packs of meat, just all laid out on the racks. So it's an interesting store for that. Where you go buy the meat and everything's like in 15, 20 pound containers.
Yeah. Thank you, Arlene. We appreciate it very much. Yes, I know Fairlight Brett could put together a workout plan for me. I already have a workout plan. The problem is doing it.
Yeah. It's not the planning, it's the acting.
Oh. Yes. Actually, I don't go to the gym. My workouts are at home, but
go to the beach, go swimming.
Going for a walk.
Nice. I'm going to get ready to take my kid and drive across town. Alrighty, everybody.
Yes, thank you guys for hanging out. We really greatly appreciate it. Thanks for the comments, the kind words. Really appreciate it a lot.
Yeah.
Come back 2 weeks.